When you first got in the business, you're a big guy, always been a big guy, but you weren't really an athlete. Played a little baseball, but you had an injury, and you were a musician, and you were a very good student. So all of a sudden, you start hitting weights, you start getting into business. And did you ever have one of the veterans? And you've always been a big guy, and so a guy like my size, man, we're taking a lot of bumps because we're going to bump more because I'm a smaller guy than you. But did some of the veterans come up to you and say, "Hey, kid, take it easy. You only got so many bumps left on your bump ticket"? My question is, long story short, was the payoff worth it? Was all the fame, fortune, and all the good times worth how you feel now?
Well, to answer that question first, yes.
I agree.
I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, it was a great life. It was fun. I loved the business. I mean, you know, anybody that really knows me can tell you how much I love wrestling, love this. I'm a fan. I'm a mark. I'm the biggest mark you've ever seen. I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm a mark. When you were coming over today, my wife goes, "I haven't seen you this excited since we were married." I mean, I'm a huge fan. So I just love the business. But when I first started, they said real wrestlers don't wear knee pads. That was the rap I got from Hiro Matsuda when he broke me in the business. He goes, "If you're a real wrestler, you don't wear knee pads." So about a year into the business, you know, trying to do 20-minute Broadways with Brian Blair and, you know, Gordon Nelson and all these crazy guys that were just bending my head around and sticking it up my ass. You know, I couldn't wrestle and they could wrestle. You know, after about 2 years, I had to start wearing knee pads because my knees were already blown out. You know, so, all those injuries that they said, "Kid, if you keep doing that, you know, 25, 30 years from now, you'll be sorry." It all came back to haunt me. Everything they said was true. All the stupid crap, you know, and the dumb bumps on the concrete in Japan and all the stuff with Hansen and all those idiots. I feel every bit of it today.
Man, when I watch some of your old tapes back, dude, you were pretty damn quick on your feet. And a lot of people don't remember that, maybe from some of your later matches. But, dude, you were pretty damn quick on your feet and also had some sugar holds, some shoot holds, and had some wrestling background. But is that because of the time that you spent in Japan or from your time with Gordon Nelson or some of those shooters? Because you worked a big man pro style, but when it come down to it, you could also wrestle. But that wasn't your style to technically wrestle, but you could.
Yeah, well, that was the whole thing. Was when I first got in the business, I lasted about 7 or 8 months, and it's just here we go with the woe is me backstory. I went to school with Mike Graham. Eddie Graham was a promoter. I was like a year behind Mike Graham and Steve Kern. Steve liked me, but Mike and I really didn't get along until later in the years we became good friends.
Was that the heat because you didn't play football?
Yeah, high school crap. I didn't play football. I was long-haired playing music. So when Matsuda broke me in, after he broke my leg, he bailed out. Yeah, he broke my leg, and I went home for 4 months. I was supposed to be going to college. Finance and management was my major. I had a minor in music, and I was going to be an accountant, you know, and play music, you know, on the backside to make some extra money. But I was a huge wrestling fan, so when I had enough courage to go down there, they didn't want some long-haired hippie, because I had long blonde hair, full head of hair, playing in a band. Plus, the biggest mistake I made was I ran my mouth around this small town. "I'm going to be a wrestler. I'm going to be a wrestler." You know, big mistake. So when I went down there, Matsuda broke my leg the first day, sat between my legs, put his elbow on my shin, grabbed my toe, posted my leg, and snapped my leg, and told me not to come back. Well, I went back 4 months later. I had my hair cut real short. And my brother was the tough guy. I wasn't, you know, and so I was always in the shadow of my older brother, who was this biker who ran around with a tough crowd. And when I got my leg broke, my dad was pissed. He goes, "How dare you let anybody hurt you? What's wrong with you? You're not like your brother." And it kind of like, it lit me up, you know. And so I went back, cut my hair short, and I said, "No one's ever going to hurt me again." That was my attitude. And they weren't trying to hurt me now when I came back. They couldn't believe I came back, but they were exercising me, getting me in really, really, really good shape. I went down to about 245, 50 pounds, which is, I'm 290 like right now I'm 295 at 66 years old. And so I went back and they taught me how to wrestle, and Gordon Nelson would come work out with me. Jack and Jerry would come down and work out with me. Pat Patterson came down to help me do some stuff. And so they kind of like taught me to wrestle Florida style, like you were doing in Texas and all over, and actually have, you know, wrestling matches. And that's how I was broke in. But when I went to Japan, that's the only time I could really wrestle. Because as soon as I got a chance to go to the fuller territory, Pensacola, Mobile, Dothan, Alabama, Birmingham, as soon as I got there, they wanted me not to go down on a drop kick. Big man, the one arm thing, push everybody off, test of strength. They didn't want me selling. They wanted me to work like Andre kind of, because I was, 300 pounds.
You're the biggest guy in the territory.
Yeah, thank you. So it was tough because I wanted to actually wrestle and take a backdrop for somebody or a hip toss or an arm drag, but they said, you can't do that. So even when I went to Minnesota, fast forward years later, Vern Gagne goes, we don't want you going down. Dude, that got all kind of heat from like Ken Patera and 450-pound Jerry Blackwell and all these guys that I was friends with. And I said, guys, I'll have a match with you, but Vern doesn't want me going off my feet. So going to Japan and getting to wrestle was actually fun for me because in Japan, they don't talk a lot of English and they don't go over matches for hours and hours. You just go out there and you work. And so for me to go to Japan, I was in my heyday. I was having a blast there, but we did do a lot of technical wrestling in Japan, which they wouldn't let me do here.
I don't know that would have drawn the money that you ended up drawing. And to me, when I go back and I'm watching all of these matches, one of the best things that you did, because you always think, okay, if you're going to build the perfect wrestler that's going to draw money, let's say you got to have size, got to have some rap, ability to work, charisma. Dude, you had all that. But you're one of the biggest guys in the territory. But to me, your biggest assets, one of your hallmarks was your ability and willingness to sell. I mean, you were like Hamlet in a Shakespearean play out there. You sold your ass off. One of the biggest, other than Andre, biggest guys in the territory. Who ingrained that into you to the level that you took it to? Because there's few people that I've seen have the ability to read and understand a crowd like you could. Okay, so let's go back to it. Where did you pick up the salesmanship? Because you were basically a gigantic white meat baby face, with the, I am a real American, all that stuff with WrestleMania 1 going forward. Tell me about the salesmanship, because you don't see a whole lot of big guys like you sell to the degree that you did. And I think that's why people were able to get so much heat on you. And then we'll get into the fire and the comeback in a minute.
Well, subconsciously, I really didn't know what I was watching, but I grew up watching Dusty Rhodes down here and the Great Malenko and Eddie Graham, Jack and Jerry Briscoe, and all the big wrestlers that came in when the promoters were friendly and exchanging talent. Vince Sr. would send down like Ivan Putski, the Mighty Igor, Superstar Billy Graham, Ivan Koloff. So I get to see everybody here. But the one thing I remember was no matter how great the matches were, as soon as Dusty Rhodes came out for the main event and somebody would chop him in the throat, he'd go right down like a tub of shit and start selling his ass off, and the place would start rumbling. So subconsciously, I was such a huge Dusty fan watching him. And then when I saw Billy Graham come in, I said, well, I want to sell like Dusty, which I didn't even know what selling was, but I want to look like him.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like had that subconsciously, and I stumbled around my first territory with the Fullers. And then I quit and went back to work on the docks, loading ships because I wasn't making enough money. And then I went up and worked for Lawler and those guys. And they had it to where they didn't want me selling. They wanted me to stay strong, up there. So I had a pretty good little run in Memphis, but then I quit again and went back to the docks. But when I went back up to New York in 78.
It was for the old man.
Yeah, I was just, I could sell because I was working with Andre, but I was a heel. So I really didn't have it figured out completely. But then when I got fired there by Vince Sr. for doing the Rocky movie. And
why did he want you to do the Rocky movie?
Well, because the mindset back there wasn't like it is now. Back then.
Okay.
That we want Stone Cold to do his TV show, and we want Stone Cold to do Expendables, and we want The Rock to do this. Back then, 78, 79, if you were a wrestler, you didn't do TV. You didn't go do a movie. If you're a wrestler, you're a wrestler. And I told Vince Sr., hey, I got this call from Stallone.
And which you thought was a rib.
Yeah.
And ended up being a real deal.
Yeah.
And this was a launching. Dude, I remember seeing Rocky 3 when I saw you in that, because I've been following your career forever, because I've been watching since I was 7, and you were on top of the world. And when I saw you come out as Thunder Lips, I was like, holy shit. It was like that part was tailor-made for you. Anyway, back to your story about the salesmanship.
Yeah.
You got fired from Vince Sr.
Right. Vince Sr. fired me for doing the movie because you weren't supposed to do movies or TV shows or anything like that back then. The thinking was pretty barbaric. But then I went to Japan and I hung out there for a long time because I had a girlfriend in Japan. And I had a blast over there. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but it was fun. And the good thing was I sent all my pictures to Vern Gagne, because I heard that Minneapolis was the territory, brother. You work 4 days a week. They fly you around on a plane. I've been driving everywhere. I don't with 4 Samoans in the car. I'm not used to flying on a plane. So, a plane and 4 days a week and this and that and the other. And when I went into Minnesota, I sent all my promos in where I wouldn't show them my face. I said, if you want, and my arms were big back then. I was like 330 pounds and I was all yacked up and training every day. And I went in there, and all my promos were with my back to the camera, saying, if you want to see this face, you got to buy a ticket, I was thinking that I was going to be this big heel going in there, but everybody was cheering me because they wanted me to beat Jesse's ass. And when I went up there, Vern Gagne got in my head, and Greg Gagne, I would give him his due. They said, bro, you need to go down and stay down and start selling. So those 3 years I had in Minnesota, that's where I learned to just crawl around and beg for help and sell with my head up and don't keep my head down and show the story, show them the movie with the expressions in your face and crawl and stay alive and fight back. And, there's an art to the selling. Everybody has a different character, but there's a way to get that compassion and people on your side when you're down and create emotion. So 3 years, in Minnesota with Vern in my ear, and Greg in my ear, that's where I learned how to sell there. So when I went back to Wrestle the Sheik, January 23rd, 1984, I was ready. I knew what needed to be done.
You had the tools of the trade.
It took me that long to figure it out.